Well, it might not be that prevalent over here, but the Cape Southeaster certainly is blowing up a gale here in Cape Town. And the Avontuur Estate Cape Fillies Guineas run over 1,600 metres sees the new course at Kenilworth being utilised for the very first time in this Cape sizzling summer season. After last week's superb performance with the analysis of the Sansui Summer Cup, which of course wasn't really rocket science, but the confidence placed in Louis the King to retain his mantle as champion racehorse of South Africa, of course in the Gauteng vicinity. We'll have to wait for the Queen's Plate and the JB Met to see whether Fritura and Legislate can actually master this champion colt from the Jeff Woodruff yard. But more importantly, we're going to see if we can analyse the Avontuur Estate Fillies Guineas, and Mark van Deventer will start in reverse order with the first of Glenn Cotson's runners, number 10 on the card. She's got a merit rating of 82 and her name is Jeweler's Joy.
Jeweler's Joy, Andrew, we'll find it tough, I think. Is making steady progress. Ran on nicely behind Zambezi River in the Lanzarote Ready to Run Stakes, but is in really deep here.
Brutal Force is poised to have a crack at them too towards the inside. Shimmering Leaves is over towards their inside, and Zambezi River is unwinding a good-looking run over towards the inside. In the centre, River God has picked it up. Zambezi River and Brutal Force is charging home in the centre. And it's Brutal Force who's come forward to pick it up from Zambezi River. These two fight it out. Zambezi River, though, has taken off close home. And Zambezi River draws off to beat Brutal Force and Sunset Trip.
Brett Crawford has expressed a measure of confidence that his filly will be competitive. Let's talk about Cuvée Brut.
An interesting entry, very lightly raced, just had the 3 starts, finished behind Double Whammy on debut. And there were a number of horses that came out of that form line to do really well. And then since then has reeled off a quick double. What was most impressive when she won her maiden finishing fraction was quite zippy. And then she duly came out after that, received heavy betting action in a sprint at Kenilworth, and the lightly weighted Lady Var had skipped clear, but Cuvée Brut ran her down and won quite cosily in the end. So she clearly has a tremendous amount of scope, will enjoy the extra ground, and could easily get into the money with a little bit more improvement.
Lady Var is the one in front. Along the inside, Smiling Mistress and Cuvée Brut is now starting a run between runners, and she comes forward and joins issue. Up the outside, we got Thrill Factor. Then comes Black Vanker, Sapphire Gem. Lady Var's hanging tough. Cuvée Brut, he's all over along the inside, and Cuvée Brut under the hands has hit the front with 100 to go. Now Cuvée Brut starts to draw clear to win it. Cuvée Brut from Lady Var.
Right, the Cape Southeaster has really come to the fore in the early part of the week. It's been blowing up a gale. Will that be in her favour?
I think so. Look, you know, the problem with the wind, Andrew, is horses are affected by it differently. And you know, when I do my speed figures, you get big fluctuations in how horses perform. Some actually seem to thrive on it, whereas others are thrown badly off stride. So it's quite unpredictable. Obviously, it has a big effect on the pace. So that's also a factor, but it seems like the horses themselves, some enjoy it. I know from way back, horses with breathing issues, when they're running into a gale, it makes it so much easier for them to get the oxygen in.
They do have the apparatus with which to do it. I mean,
An old mate of mine, racegoers, will remember Paddy McGibbon, fantastic rider here in the Western Cape, and he was the first to let me in on that. And he said, you'll find that some horses with difficulties in breathing, when they're running into a raging southeaster, it's almost as if the wind does the job for them.
Justin Snaith, of course, victorious in last year's Fillies Guineas with a high-class filly that went on to win her Group 1 race, has got Sunset Trip, the daughter of Trippy.
Could be a pace threat. I'd be very startled if she actually keeps going to trouble the principals. But she ran really gamely in the Lanzarote, got up handy and kept plugging away. Couldn't resist the finish of Zambezi River and also Brutal Force, but stayed on stoutly, and I think she'll play a really big role as far as the early fractions are concerned. And then when we get to chat about the prospects of Cold as Ice and Madge Moo and Jet Set Go and their distance preferences, I think Sunset Trip, whilst not necessarily a player as far as possibly winning it, she's going to have a big influence on the outcome of the race.
In the centre, River God has picked it up. Zambezi River and Brutal Force is charging home in the centre. And it's Brutal Force who's come forward to pick it up from Zambezi River. These two fight it out. Zambezi River, though, has taken off close home. And Zambezi River draws off to beat Brutal Force and Sunset Trip.
In Nara, there's been quite a bit of talk about this filly, and she deserves healthy respect, particularly for trifectas and quartets.
Absolutely. Beautifully bred, and it caught my eye at her penultimate start. She stayed on very, very swiftly behind Indaba, and she made up a lot of ground at the Durbanville circuit, which was running very fast that day, and I was surprised that she got as close as she did from off the pace. Then ran in the Choice Carriers Championship last time, which was a false run race, and they just turned on the afterburners at the top of the straight, and she was able to plug away. She didn't actually lose much ground. She didn't make up any headway either. So I thought that was a good effort under the circumstances, and she will relish the extra ground. Absolutely.
Just as Indaba was victorious on the Jockeys International Race Day on the 16th, so too was Atab on the 15th in somewhat different conditions. She has subsequently run. She didn't win, but she was far from disgraced. She makes the trip down for Mike de Kock.
Yes, I think clearly a second stringer, but reeled off a double, beat Sweetwater, and then romped home, as you mentioned, defeating Maine Sunday in the wetter ground. Finished third behind Banbury recently. I think she'll need to step up a bit to trouble the main candidates.
Moving on to the daughter of Jetmaster out of this marvellous mare Azabu Park that Pippa was alluding to. She's a filly that's definitely going to be running on very strongly and will certainly appreciate this extended trip.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not as if her form over shorter was shabby by any means. She reeled off a quick hat trick, and her finishing fractions were also pretty good. Speed figures withstand scrutiny, and clearly primed for this race, Andrew. As you say, the extra ground will help big time. She also featured in that slow run Choice Carriers race. When I say slow run, I mean early fractions. Yeah, because they were hurtling through in the stretch, and you'd think that she might have been outpaced, but she also gutsed it out, and you know, she was only beaten at 2.5 lengths at the wire. She has got to be a big runner. Obviously, you would assume that Majmu and Cold as Ice may be more brilliant, but Jet Set Go is not impossible.
It would be very interesting as a challenge from former master, with Vaughan Marshall having taught Joey Ramsden so much, and Joey Ramsden appears to have the more precocious filly, but I'm sure Vaughan will want to win the big prize rather than the build up to the Fillies Guineas.
Yeah, and Vaughan has got a tremendous record in feature races around the country. He's never been afraid to travel. He's taken them on in Josie, and obviously initially based in Durban, where he had a fantastic series of trials. He has a reputation for being deadly when he raids Port Elizabeth, and since he made Cape Town his home, he's been amongst the winners. He's on numerous occasions in important races.
Just as Joey had a couple of horses in the Ready to Run Cup, so too is it the case over here, and Grey Light, certainly a very talented filly.
Romped home on Polytrack when she won her maiden, but prior to that, Joey had pitched her into Grade 1 races before winning her maiden, and that's something that he wouldn't do lightly. She's clearly got plenty of ability. She ran up behind Acrostar at her penultimate start, and Acrostar is one of the fastest improving fillies around. Of concern, though, that she was really no match, and Acrostar just ran past her, and she appeared to be rather leaden-footed. Unfortunately, at her follow-up run in the Choice Carriers, again, she was one-paced. She didn't quicken up with the rest of them. So she'll need to improve significantly to be a factor. But I have huge respect for Joey Ramsden. He's won this race before, if you recall, years ago with Shadow Dancing on an illustrious honours roll. We were having a look at the winners over the years, and virtually without exception, the fillies that have won this classic race have gone on to achieve tremendous success.
Double Whammy is a filly that was billed very, very strongly as a possible winner of the choice carriers, but she just found Cold as Ice a little bit too zippy in the closing stages.
Yeah, Cold as Ice came from behind her and drew clear. So I think that's probably why many people now are saying that, you know, Double Whammy can't really do it. But sometimes it's a mistake to place too much stock in one run. And Double Whammy prior to that was very, very impressive. In a 1400-meter race at Durbanville, she raced handy and kept going to beat some very talented older horses, including Lana Falcon, who's got well-exposed form and is really one of the top of her vintage. Prior to that, she won a Kenilworth 6, defeating Money Surger. The speed figure was really good. And Double Whammy is the sort of filly that if she's able to get away with softer early fractions, she might be able to trouble them. But I think most people will be expecting her perhaps to falter in the closing stages, but she's good. She's got plenty of talent and in fact beat Cold as Ice early in her career.
Very hard to imagine more passionate people than Brian and Kathy Finch, and of course the Kiesvatters. They're relatively new to the game, but they are so incredibly on fire for this game, and I'm sure that they're going to really battle to sleep on Friday night.
Yeah, great sporting owners with a wonderful vibe and spirit. It's always a lot of fun to be racing with Finchy and the gang, and they have a machine. That's the praise that is being heaped upon Cold as Ice by some of the hoops that have been associated with her. She is brilliant. She really has the ability to race handy, to quicken up, and she's got that turn of foot which is the hallmark of really super horses. Tactically, I suppose he has to hope that they don't go too hard early on, and that Cold as Ice's electric acceleration can prove decisive, because that's what she showed in the choice carriers. You know, from the top of the straight, the way in which she blitzed home, Andrew, was quite extraordinary. It's one of the fastest closing sectionals that I've measured there in recent times.
Double Whammy's now being pressed by Cold as Ice, who breezed on by. And Cold as Ice has kicked for home, and she's got the Choice Carriers Championship in the bag.
I think the 1600 could be the outer limit of her stamina, but you know, we often debate about distance preferences and so on. It all depends on the pace, and it also, I think, depends somewhat on the conditions on the day. Often the Fillies Guineas is run when it's extremely windy and horses get buffeted around a bit in the back straight. That affects the early fractions, and it won't be the first time that a horse seemingly with stamina doubts is able to last home if things work out. But if they go a really torrid pace and, for example, running into a headwind, then it might be tough for her to maintain her advantage, particularly against a high-class talent like Majmu.
All right, now moving on to the daughter of Reduce's Choice. It is not a negative that she's been beaten in her career, because to all intents and purposes she should probably still be unbeaten. The two negatives are that she has to travel for 18 hours plus, and she hasn't been around a left-handed turn as yet, but she is truly spectacular.
Yeah, the speed figures that I keep, Andrew, bear that out. As a juvenile, she was getting really outstanding speed figs. And the manner of her victory, she's just got this elastic, athletic stride and look really composed. And she would sprint up and just obliterate the opposition in those early juvenile features. But I think she really set the record straight at the follow-up. And that win in the Starling Stakes was super impressive. She rocketed home, and she really looks top class. Already some comparisons are being made with Igugu, and looking at their respective achievements at a similar stage of their career, I don't think that those comparisons are far-fetched. Really, Majmu looks the real deal.
My friend Mark's coming to take my check, so he tells me. I suppose in my heart, I just wish it wasn't with an Australian horse. I mean, I want a South African horse to win it, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm a racing purist, and if she's as good as they say and has a future what he thinks, then I'll be wonderful to watch her in action. We're concentrating on our two and Majmu, but there's a couple of whispers I hear for a couple of the others, and I don't think there's anything wrong with double whammy. Never mind. Cuvée Brut.
Cuvée Brut, yes.
It's a small field, but it's a high quality field. And we're going to have a great day, you know. We've sold out in the room above, in our main room, we've sold out. I don't know where I'm going to put everybody, hanging from the rafters. It's just going to be great. The Peninsula guys are on board with their feeding scheme. We'll see if we can raise some more funds for their worthwhile cause. They're running with their horses for donations, so there's food trucks, and it's going to be a great day, and they tell me it's not going to rain, and the wind's not going to blow, so we're all right.